can they help?
We were heroin addicts, detective. We don't make plans. Plans are too pretty. We got too many bumps and bruises.
这个叫每个人都心怀愿曲，但是没有一个人敢开口。
Secrets they help me keep. They're destroying me.
你想问我有没有伤害Charlie？
我也不会是第一次了。我想我们两个都是学习不起。
我可没有不见得光的东西。
这家里的人没有一个是无辜的。
Charlie had something to hide, and you have something to hide. But you know what? It will come out.
Don't you ever tell me what I have to do.
You know, people who do this sort of thing, they don't stop. They can't. Not until they die. Or somebody else does.
Well, I probably should be dug out to sea.
I used to be on the board of Channel M, and I advocated for a multi-language television station to exist. So the question I have is, has the CRTZ regulations, which is what triggered this question, is you're saying that you need more Chinese language in your episode in order to qualify for the funding. So is there, have we somehow finally reached the point where our regulatory bodies like the CRTC, have they helped to facilitate some of the change? Because in terms of audience, if we're talking about an audience that's not an American audience, but a Canadian audience, and then more broadly, a Chinese audience, have we managed somehow to tap into the broader audience with the assistance of some very mundane regulatory requirements from the CRTC for your Omni's licensing?
So what the CRTC has done is that we had a new government, and the previous government, CRTC didn't seem to be a priority. I could be wrong. And this government, the Liberal government, tends to be a little bit more cognizant of the role of CRTC and what it can do, not just to the media industry, but telco as a whole. And CRTC, it is making a huge effort in terms of even having the possibility of a broadcaster like Omni to be able to do a show like this. Because they were mandated to set aside funding to fund a show like this. I mean, they gave us the first tranche of money, but the rest of the money comes from the existing systems such as tax credit in Ontario and BC, such as the multicultural funding envelope. They're not huge, so we had to do a lot of piecemeals and put them together into a bigger pie, right? So, and we had to satisfy all those rules and criteria. That's why we film all interior in Ontario, and including the police rooftop scene. And anyone, all Vancouver, say, hey, where's our mountain, right? So I asked to superimpose the mountain into it, but we didn't. We ran out of money. Jimmy Patterson World, the Chum World, and also smaller stations like the Czech on the island, and a couple small stations in Atlantic Canada. So I mean that's a big sort of almost like an existential question for the Canadian media industry. But we have the added layer, the complicated layer of multiculturalism, because multiculturalism is not just a political sort of slogan. It is neat because voters or newer Canadian voters, they can decide the outcome of an election. Because people who vote Tories or NDP or Liberal, they don't really change, right? You may vote NDP begrudgingly or Conservative begrudgingly, but you don't have to change. It's the new Canadians who vote with what they like to hear. But if your political party's message cannot reach those new Canadians, and they say, Mr. Chung tells me to vote Jenny Kwan, we all vote for Jenny Kwan, right? Not knowing whether or not Jenny Kwan represents your point of view. So that's why the government realized the importance role of media. And media can't be just news. You have to do something like this, right? And this is possible because of the rise of the Chinese market. And when you see the biggest release of the year, Star Wars, have two Asian actors, Donnie Yen and Jiang Wen, powerful actors, right? The other part of the world, not just China, Iran has great actors, France has great actors, but they never be cast in Hollywood big blockbusters like Star Wars, because Star Wars needs to do well in China. It did extremely well in China. So with Donnie Yen and Zhang Wen, it's a slam dunk for them to make millions of dollars. The Chinese box office is already bigger than North American, domestic.
I'm really interested in the discussion around the availability of Chinese money and the market, because I worked on Hong Kong cinema for a long time. So I see that the opening up of the Chinese market and the kind of all these untapped sources of funding both represent great opportunities, but also new challenges, right? So for the Hong Kong industry, it becomes a way of, you flock to create a product that would be marketable in China, but then for film, without the rating system, it's like the lowest common denominator kind of market. So I'm kind of curious whether for a Canadian media product, if you're going for Chinese money, what are some of the constraints or challenges you have to deal with, and what are the creative solutions so that you don't kind of just go from, the kind of Hollywood pressure to now the Chinese pressure?
It's all, Canadian greenback, and we're proud of it. The challenge with us attracting Chinese money is that a lot of Chinese investors, they don't get overseas Chinese. They don't get it. They don't get the struggle of Canadian Chinese, American Chinese have endured over the century, right? And because most of us, the older Canadian Chinese or American Chinese are from the coastal provinces. And now the money in China, they are just as mercenary as anybody else. They look at this as, how much money can I get? I'd rather go with a Hollywood production that can yield me the most ROI, right? So just like the film Reverend, that Leonardo DiCaprio won the Oscar, they had a huge financial gap at the end. Not much, 50 million, and nobody would film it. So why would you film a guy fighting in Alberta? Who will watch that? Yeah, Leonardo, so what? There's no market. Nobody will invest in it. And then a Hong Kong producer, Philip Lee, found the money from a toy maker who, out of Shenzhen, who make money from a lot of sweatshop laborers, and but you know what? He became rich. He became a public company. He's still making a lot of toys, and his cities. You know what? I'm gonna give it a shot, right? And now the movie's done really well, and both critically and commercially. But for projects like this, it's not easy, because right now through connections that we are presenting this in front of Ali Film and a couple other, and they don't know what to make of it, because they don't have this notion. They don't understand the struggle of a minority in a mainstream society, right? They don't, because China, you all speak Chinese, you all speak Mandarin, right? And this kind of stuff is typically funded by the government that nobody watches, right? And we have to struggle between a government-funded projects, and it has to be marketable at the same time. So that's why we have a bit of this kind of product. And it's a very unique product. Also, because of China now, a lot of Canadian actors would have opportunities, because we can appear in Hollywood productions that can be released in China, right? So the world is still pretty much driven by commerce. I hate to say it, but yeah, I mean, it is reality, but it's also people. They are a lot more outspoken. Right? If you have Tilda Swinton playing as a fabulous actress as she is, playing a Tibetan monk, it's just not convincing to, say, Asian audience, and they will vote with their feet. So in a sense, it forces producers to make decisions not just purely on money, but also that financial return is also based on audience taste, their like and dislike. So projects like ours do have a role. Is that, look, if you don't speak up, don't watch shows like this, so we can have more shows to be made like this, you will never have shows that reflect yourself, right? So the audience also have a role to play in terms of being warm and kind of receptive, right, to projects like this.
Given these, the background, the difficulty, or the timing, I would like to know more about the creative process, the genesis, the origin. And also I would like to know more about the writing, like the writer. I see they are not, I mean, by name they're not
Yeah.
Chinese. I don't know like their background
Yeah.
process. And also director.
For the writers, funny enough, one is an Italian immigrant, another one is a Croatian immigrant. And we not deliberate, we just didn't go with a Canadian Chinese writer worrying that they were stigmatized. They put too much angst in it and becomes too Chinesey. We want to create a human story that if a Croatian and Italian writer can write something that can resonate with their own sense and sensibility, that's something that we have an existing relationship with these two writers who are willing to work with a low budget, project. There's a lot of reasons. It's not just one reason, right? So that was that, and they got it because when we discussed, we had long story meetings about, and the Croatian guy had the same problem with with his dad, and the Italian guys, oh, this could totally be Italian, sister and Italian mom like Fiona's character. So that's the universality that we were going after, right? And the director, it's a funny decision. All the directors for season 1 and season 2 said we should use Asian directors, but our funders, they said, we never heard of it, and we want to use the established one to anchor the show. What if the show flops? Our money would go nowhere, and we need experienced director to help, right? And that has a point because you're talking about millions of dollars here, and we do have great Asian directors like Julia Kwan, Mina Sam, but each director has a style, right? And that style actually plays a very important role in how many pages we can film a day, whether or not they can work with this kind of cultural diversity within the Chinese community. Because a lot of these Asian Chinese directors, they what's the word? Almost very similar to Elfina's experience, that they grew up trying to fit into the Canadian sort of optic, like how the Chinese are being perceived, so to create products that could be perceived in a way that can provide future opportunities, right? And this is not a judgment, this is just the way it is, because we all do certain things to make sure that we all write applications, our grants in a way that is conducive to the funder, and there's nothing wrong about that. But with the director who can film 5 pages a day, who can move quickly, and while creating this kind of a camera work and style, I mean, you guys can speak to that. The directors, their experience does play a big role in making this a reality, a possibility, right?
Oh, it's a huge, it plays a huge part, and every director they come at it with their own background. So learning to work with each one with their individual experience changes how we work as well. And I think in the beginning it was like, no one on the crew actually was Asian. It was just the cast, Ben, and our translators. But what it did was thank God the translators were there, and we were all working together. You kind of all collaborate a bit more to understand everything. But the feedback from the crew was that without understanding a language, did they get the essence? And if they get the essence, the words are there, it's written, the story gets told. So in that sense, it actually created a different way of working without having to understand it. If we can capture the meaning, then we've in a way done our job.